What's up, my friend? How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Travis. And how's everybody out there in podcast land?
I think everybody's doing good. We haven't had any, attempts on our lives in the last week, so that's good. We must not have said anything too terrible.
All right, good. Yeah. Hey, nobody sent me any text with the names of anything that I couldn't manage to remember on the last podcast, although I'm sure
or names of things that you're going to regret, like, stroke face or any other bad comments that you might say.
Here's the problem with the stroke face comment. I was looking at a picture that somebody took of me over the weekend. That's me. That's not her.
You think you have stroke face? No, your face looks good. Looks good on you.
Thank you for that.
But you wear the mustache a lot better than she does, so I think, it kind of balances you out.
This is Sandra Huckabee we're talking about, in case somebody didn't hear that episode.
Is that her name? God. Sandra? Sarah.
No.
Sarah Huckabee.
No.
Yes.
Sarah? Yeah, Sarah
Huckabee.
Oh, Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Yes. Not to be confused with Bernie Sanders' daughter.
Bernie Sanders. Well, they look the same.
I heard, when you were talking about the Trump lawyers, I heard there was some question, and I'm not going to get into this with you today, but there was some audio that I found where they were asking the Trump lawyer if Trump still thinks that the election was stolen, and is it his counsel's opinion that it was stolen? And so they were asking the question to this dude, whatever his name was, and he paused and he looked back to the chairman of the proceedings and he goes, "Who asked that?" And you could hear Bernie Sanders in the background going, "It was me. It was me. I asked that."
They could proceed.
And he says, "Why would you ask me that? It's not. This trial isn't about me or my opinion. You should never ask counsel what they think. This is about, Trump's impeachment, not me." And he was all pissed off.
Wow.
And Bernie was trying to...
let me drop the first F-bomb of this episode on that lawyer. Fuck him.
Well, we know what you think.
Yeah, you are a second-rate piece of crap lawyer that apparently
Listen, everybody has to have a public defender. Come on.
Yeah, and you're talking to senators. So I don't think that you, as some second-rate lawyer, not you, this guy, this Trump lawyer, I don't think as a second-rate Trump lawyer, you get to be snotty with the senators.
Is Bernie, is he a lawyer? Do we know?
That's a good question. Don't know.
A lot of these guys are, they have some legal background.
Oh, yeah. I think more are than aren't, probably.
We don't know if he is?
No, I don't know. Bernie Sanders.
I thought that was a good rebuttal, though. I mean, it is. I think they were trying.
His answer. It was me.
Well, no. The attorney's saying, "Hey, this isn't about my opinion. Doesn't mean shit. Basically, it's not about me. It's you asked me what my client thought or what his thoughts, how they may impact, what happened and how it led people to do a bunch of shit."
I think it goes to whether this client is still insane, as he was.
That's all they should ask. Do you think your client is still insane? It doesn't matter what I think. Well, does your client think he's insane? Does he talk to himself? Does he ask himself questions?
Yeah.
Does he answer the voices in his head?
I didn't have okay, speaking of the T word, so did you see what happened in the last, was it today? I think it's today that the Supreme Court has finally, since October, there's been a case, emergency hearing request from the Trump, from the actual Trump lawyers, to
Rudy Giuliani?
Yeah, that's right. No, not him. Because the let me think here. Who is it? Because the New York
Times,
Cyrus Vance, they subpoenaing his tax information.
Oh yeah, right? I read that the Supreme Court is sitting on it.
Yeah, well, they're done sitting on it. They wanted to get through the election. They wanted to get through then the insurrection and then the impeachment trial.
What do you mean? It was on the calendar. Hey, we have the election, we have the Super Bowl, then we have the insurrection, and then we'll get to the tax returns.
Yeah,
hold on, and then wait a minute. I have a dentist appointment in there, and then we'll get to it.
So they got to it, and they are not taking the case. So
the Supreme Court is not taking the case. So this is the New York case that you think, or that a lot of people have said.
This is his tax returns.
This is
So
the
8 years of tax returns that were subpoenaed.
where he has always said, "Hey, I can't release my tax returns because I'm under audit." This is that ongoing audit.
Yeah, I think so.
And so the Supreme Court won't hear it. So what does that
Right.
mean to the fate of the case?
Well, that means that the accounting firm that handles his finances is going to have to turn over his taxes.
Is that why they blew up the building at the Jersey Shore, the old Trump Tower? Because the Supreme Court said, "Hey, we're not going to handle it." So they said, "Well, fuck it, blow up his building."
His taxes were in there.
We're in the building, right?
I know. I heard people paid as much as $500 to get a close up view of that implosion.
Well, they were bidding. It was that, and then it was the Mars rover. You want to go watch that, or you want to go watch the Trump blowing up building in the Jersey Shore?
Which one? The Trump building?
It did, yeah. Well, because they thought Trump might be around too. They thought his helicopter was on top of the building, and he might be sayonara.
I was hoping he was in it. So.
But this guy's been radio silent, but he is supposed to speak at some Republican convention somewhere. I think this week.
CPAC.
Is that this week?
That's what it's called. Yeah.
You have a
I think
CPAP
it is.
machine. Is that the same thing?
CPAC.
Oh,
not
there's
CPAP.
there's a difference.
Yeah, it's a K on the end.
Okay.
Yeah, supposedly he's maybe going to speak. Maybe he's going to talk about reveal that he's going to run again in 2024. So,
is it wise? Would you advise him if you were his counsel? I'm talking like if you were his public defender counsel, like a Better Call Saul situation. Would you advise him to not say anything because every time he speaks, bad shit happens?
What country do we not have an extradition treaty with?
Well,
that would be my first question.
None, I don't think.
There's nowhere you can go where we can't extradite. I think there is.
I don't know.
The next question would be, is there any country that we don't have an extradition treaty with that would take Trump in besides Saudi Arabia?
There's a lot of countries that I think, well, first of all, it's a whole new policy. Everything that has been done in the past is up for rewriting, and the Biden administration has made no secrets about that. But did you see that story about that German dude that was deported back to Germany? He was like 95 years old. He was a Nazi. He was in the war. He was like a concentration camp soldier.
Oh, no, I didn't.
You didn't?
And what was he staying here under Trump's protection or something?
He was living at the Trump Hotel for free as long as he took the trash out.
No way. Because he made good schnitzel.
He did. And, he anything that was fattening, Trump was on the Trump diet. So, bring me whatever you make me. Just make me the schnitzel, bring me a Diet Coke.
Oh, my
wash it
God.
down. But there really was a dude. He was like 95. I think he was living in, I don't know. So one of your favorite places in the South, Tennessee, maybe.
Oh, okay.
And he came here after the war. I'm sure like the whole MO, he changed his identity. But he was living in the U.S. He had a job in the U.S. I should know what it was, but I don't have it written down.
Oh, I never not heard of this story.
Yeah, and I think he owned property here, and I want to say he was 95 years old, and he was just convicted of war crimes. He was still receiving a pension from the German government for all these years.
Wow.
So how many years has that been since the end of the war?
A lot.
A lot. And so I don't know how long he's been here, but it sounded like either the late 40s or early 50s, and I don't think he necessarily made it a secret that he was here. Again, he had a pension, so the German government knew where to find him and where to pay him.
Did he just get convicted, you think? Is that what the story is? Was this some kind of war crime trial?
Yeah, exactly. And he was his punishment is to be deported back to Germany. And he's like, well, this is my home. This is where I've made my home for more years than I made it in Germany, and I've owned property here, and what am I going to do?
Was he a concentration camp guard?
Yeah, he was I don't know if he was a guard, but he worked in the camps, in one of the camps.
Well, here's the thing. You don't get prosecuted for war crimes just because you were a German regular, in the German army. I mean, not everybody in the army was a Nazi. Right. In fact, most of them weren't. So, this guy must have done something special.
You're saying that just his involvement in the concentration camp, let's say he was an employee, maybe his job was to clean the bathrooms.
Well, here's the thing. If he was a member of the German army and he was a guard at Auschwitz and he ushered in people to the gas chambers, yeah, that's enough to get you a war crime conviction. So
yeah, probably not a lot of public defenders that'll take you up on that one. Not even Saul.
Call Trump's, because obviously call the guy just to represent.
Well, they're looking for work now. They need more work.
Well, because they never got paid. Trump hasn't paid them for that.
Well, the taxpayers are going to pay it, like we pay everything.
Oh no. There's no White House attorneys involved. So that if they did that for him, they either did it, what's it called, pro bono?
Pro bono, yeah.
Or he paid him, which I seriously doubt. I can't see him paying anybody for anything. But maybe they got paid up front. Maybe they were that smart.
You'd have to take it, at least a retainer or something. You take a case like that with, somebody who has a history of not paying their bills or weaseling their way out of it.
Do you take it so that you can then put on your letterhead, lawyer for the 45th president of the United States, Donald J. Trump?
Well, I mean, listen, if you are trying to show your work experience, your credibility, I mean, we interview people, right? So if you got somebody's resume that it had something that stood out like that you worked on for the legal team of the Donald J. Trump presidential 45 acquittal number 2, subsection B / whatever.
Where do you think that would put the resume in the priority order for me?
I think you would read it. I think you would certainly read the whole thing and say, "What the fuck is this?"
Oh my God. Yeah.
You wouldn't want to talk to that person and find out more, find out what they knew?
Well, that's a good
maybe
question.
They were a Nazi concentration camp. Maybe they were like the lonely legal clerk, and they just worked for the firm who took on the case, and that was their first real. You work as an intern for these law firms. You don't know what cases you're going to get, and they say, "Hey, you newbie, you're up. Go make me
President Trump."
Yeah, you go make me some coffee and make a bunch of copies of this cockamamie lawsuit here for the Donald J. Trump 45th, and we'll see you at the Capitol on Tuesday. I mean, it could happen.
Oh my God.
No,
it seems like so. How long ago? Let's see. I guess last Saturday was just a week since the trial ended, right? That was just.
I think
Saturday
so.
before.
Yeah.
So crazy.
It's February though. It's like this fucking groundhog bullshit where the guy sees his shadow, and it's the shortest month of the year, but it's the shittiest month of the year where it just goes on and on and on, never ends. So it was a week ago, but it seems like fucking 2 months ago.
Yeah, I saw our buddy Jason. Hi, Jason.
What's up, Jason?
I saw Jason on Saturday.
Is he mad at us?
Right? No,
mad at you?
No. He, the fabulous company that he works for, they don't buy their employees' cars anymore. They reimburse them. So he's got a Chevy Volt, right? Or Bolt.
I think they have a Volt and a Bolt.
I don't know.
A Molt.
It's the electric one, right?
Yeah.
So he drove it into the.
How far can you go on that thing?
I don't know, 200-300 miles, I guess. And so he drove it in, and I'm like, dude, you got an electric car, huh? He's like, yeah. And, he's from Texas, And so I says, you know what? You have more electricity in that car than they have in all of Texas.
If he takes his iPhone and puts it on the dash of the car, will it charge the car? Will it suck the juice out of his phone and charge his car?
No, I don't know. That's so funny. Have you been following that Texas thing?
I have. I mean, it's wild. There's a lot of shit on that, because like everything, it's turned so political. And this is what I've said this on multiple podcast episodes of ours where we've talked about the wildfires and just everything and climate change in general and you name it. And these fucking Democrats try to blame everything on non-Democrats.
Defensive much or what?
Well, Jesus Christ. I mean, this whole Ted Cruz thing, and he's going to Cancun, and what's he supposed to be with there with a fucking shovel and dig out the snow for his neighbors?
No, because other Congress people that aren't even from the state are coming over to do that for him. So
yeah, but I mean, listen, we know Ted Cruz. It's not as if he's my buddy or anything, but you can't just attack people because they're the opposing party, and he's an easy target, and he has done some things that deserve attacking, like when he tried to stand up for the Trump election lie, but. He's trying to get out of a mess here. I mean, he was going to Cancun, and then he says, "It's I got to."
He blamed his kid.
Did he really blame it? I know he said that, but it's not as if he said, "My fucking kids made me go to Cancun." He said, I
Oh
wanted to
my
go
God.
to. I think I have a clip of that. Let me find it. But
Well, while you dig that up, let me frame how I look at this. Ted Cruz is one of two senators from the great state of Texas, and his state is involved in one of the worst what's the right word? Humanitarian disasters that state's ever going to see. Dozens of people died because they have no heat. They literally froze to death in their homes, and they have no water they can drink. And one of the two federal officers in that state goes to Cancun.
well, they have water. You're gonna get Montezuma's revenge if you drink the water. But
and then when he gets caught, no fucking piece of shit blames his kid. Oh well, we didn't have any heat, and my daughter wanted to go to Cancun, so I thought I had to go with it. It's just, I think the guy's done. So,
but you know what? That's the other thing I can't stand. You know me. Here we go again. Cancel culture. Why is it the reaction that if you don't agree with somebody, then you hit the fucking cancel button? He should resign. Everybody calls for everybody else's resignation. I'm fucking tired of that.
You should just look. It's not because of the cancel culture. It's because he's a piece of shit, and he should resign.
I mean, that's fun and funny, but I mean, come on. What is you can't
fun and funny. It's been nothing but fun and funny in Texas. So,
but you know what you just said? It's that it's one of the worst humanitarian disasters in Texas, and if that's true, then that's a big difference between what happened in Texas versus what happens in California all the fucking time with the wildfires and the rolling brownouts with electricity and all that shit. There's a big difference between a mismanagement of things like infrastructure and power supply versus what we saw in Texas. That's a one-off, cataclysmic event, right?
That happened 11 years ago. It's not one-off.
Well, 1 in 11 years is a lot different than 6 or 8 times every year.
Yeah, but we definitely have wildfires, and they definitely seem to be on the rise. And I guess the reason for that can be debated in California, but I'm not sure that the two things are particularly comparable.
I was actually upset. I was upset at Texas for letting itself freeze like that, because I have this fantasy that I'm going to get out of California and move there. But if it's going to fucking freeze and not have water for me, I'm not going.
Well, here's the thing. So where does the partisan connection to this come in for Texas? Why does this tragedy in Texas, this horrible situation for so many millions of people in that state, why does it become partisan? Because it's the Republican legislators in Texas that the stupid governor that have made it partisan, right? I mean,
more specifically,
before
it's
people are freezing to death in their homes and turning into popsicles in their backyard, they were touting how in Texas you live free without fear of regulation. Blah, 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 blah,
That's
blah.
true, because have you seen some of these electric bills?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another thing. I mean, let's assume they're going to fix that they're not going to make any Texas citizen pay a $6,000 electric bill that was $49 a month before. But, I mean, this is all what no regulation gets you. So...
But let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
This storm that supposedly happened 11 years ago, did you see the pipes like in underground parking garages that were mounted, in the ceiling that were completely frozen and then burst, and then of course the water leaked out and then totally encased the vehicles, looked like an ice cave, like something out of Superman's ice cave.
I saw some of that.
Did that shit happen 11 years ago? Was it that bad?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. Here's what I do know about it, or think I know, that 11 years ago they had these really low temperatures. It caused a draw on the electrical grid that the electrical grid could not handle, and I'm not sure of what all of the repercussions of that were 11 years ago. It's pretty bad, though. I mean, at the time, they were told that they needed to harden their electrical grid. I mean, evidently these temperatures were 100-year phenomenon before. and so now they appear to be coming once a decade. So I don't know. I mean, do we think that 11 years ago the authorities in Texas believed that it wouldn't happen again for 100 years?
I think 11 years ago it was perfectly fucking fine until all these Californians moved out of California and then flooded the Texas power grid system, and they can't sustain it.
I don't know, man. If 11 years ago they figured out that low temperatures that could come at any moment, especially with climate change, it was a thing 11 years ago.
That's another thing. Doesn't that disprove all this climate change, global warming?
No, don't take the dumbass side of this argument just to be on the other side.
Well, hey, it's the reason why it's partisan is because this is the opportunity for the Democrats, which never take the high road that they always say that they are going to do. They want to, point out any opportunity they can to make their argument, which is, hey, the hands-off, free marketplace, deregulated power structure that is Texas is a failure because you guys don't believe in climate change. You didn't do anything to prepare for this. But it's not. That's a bullshit argument. Like you said, this is a one-off event, a once in 100 year, or maybe they're becoming more frequent now, but not to that level. And the bottom line is it's supply and demand. So I read some shit about that. Immediately the Republicans, which was an incorrect statement, said, hey, this happened because of all of the solar, what do you call those things? Whirlybirds, windmills.
Yeah, green power. Right?
Yeah, they froze. So therefore this wouldn't work. And that's true. However, those things only produce like maybe a quarter of the power. So even a complete failure.
2.5 times too high on that.
Well,
it's
it depends on the
10%.
area, right? There's multiple power companies, which is the reason why you have people.
Yeah, but you got to look the whole state over. Right?
Well, the point is this: I'm not defending the Republicans.
The grid is run by a company called ERCOT. Right?
There's another one called Grizzly or Greedy or Gritty or whatever the fuck they are.
Not that I'm aware of, but
yeah, they're the ones that have the several $1,000 bills.
Oh, I don't know, but it's ERCOT, isn't it?
I'm not sure if it's like individual private companies are producing the power and then selling it back into the grid. I'm not exactly sure, but what I'm trying to say.
Look, it was the great wisdom. Excuse me. We have 3 power grids in the United States. We have the Western power grid, the Eastern power grid, and Texas. And it's like that. And in the other power grids, when you run into some kind of weather phenomenon that causes a much higher than normal spike in power draw on the grid, you can borrow power from other states, right? Because it's a multi-state thing.
But
they're not connected to anybody else. And that is simply because the Republican government in that state did not want to be subject to any kind of federal regulation.
So you're saying if they had borrowed the power, they'd be subject to some regulation that they are not otherwise?
Yeah, if they were part of the grid.
But are you part of it just to borrow it temporarily, or what are you saying that they
can't borrow it because they're not connected?
Oh, I see. So in other words, if they knew this was going to happen and it's
not like you take a couple alligator clips from New Mexico and attach them to the closest power pole in Texas. All right, you're good. Go.
I don't know. They have seen some crazy shit in South Africa, how they get power.
Right. So I think it's very sad. I mean,
but isn't that more of a management issue than an issue about how the power is produced? It's all supply and demand, and we have power that's produced by multiple technologies. Wind, coal, natural gas. I don't know if they have nuclear there, but the bottom line is all of that combined normally sustains the Texas power grid. In this case, they either knew or they didn't know or whatever. They didn't plan. They didn't act. So was that an option to somehow borrow power from another grid? Could they have done that?
They can't do it because they have decided to be separate and apart from the rest of the country as far as power grids go.
So in other words, even with advance warning, it's like driving a ship into the iceberg. It's like, well, you got power over there. You got power over there, but I'm going straight ahead into this rock because I'm not on your team. I can't borrow from you.
I don't think there's any connection. It's not like you need a switch or something, right? It's not like something that can be, hey, turn on the switch or we borrow from Nevada. There's no switch? Oh,
What about all the
hey,
people
that's unfortunate.
crossing the border illegally? Can we string them together and have them make the connection? I'm
One
just
long-
kidding.
One
Come
long
on.
extension cord up into the asshole of Texas.
I got to work one of those jokes in every once in a while.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Well, it's unfortunate, and I think it's even more unfortunate that there's more partisan stuff connected. But there's been a very much of a bipartisan push across the country to try to get help to them. I mean, the one thing they need is they need more electricity, and that's the one thing nobody can do for them. But there's been, bottled water and things like that are coming until things get straightened out. So,
well, and like you said, the optics are bad when you have the elected officials, and let's not throw the other guy under the bus because we don't know if he was in Cancun.
Who is the other?
I don't even know. Who is it?
Well, I don't know. We don't know because he wasn't making a fucking jackass out of himself all over national news. That was only Ted Cruz.
But we know that because it's Ted Cruz. Because Ted Cruz is pretty vocal. But if this was a one-off thing, if the other dude, Jason, you're going to have to fill us in, who the other senator is.
Oh my God! Jason lives in California now. He may not be keeping up on all the.
He better. He probably has at least an address there, so he can still buy ammunition to prepare for the global apocalypse.
Why didn't they just start shooting off their guns and warm their hands around the warm shell casings?
They should. I mean, that's a good idea. I would do that. But why is it
so sad, man? So sad. So many people with running charcoal grills in the front room.
Here, I got this cruise.
All right, listen.
I'll tell you, Heidi and me, we lost power for 2 days. Our house was dark. We had no heat. Actually, the fireplace behind me, we were all huddled around the fireplace because it was the only heat in the house. And after a couple of days, after the girls being really cold, it being in the teens and the 20s outside, our girls said, look, school's been canceled for the week. Can we take a trip and go somewhere warm?
And let me interrupt here. Like always, when you have kids of politicians, let's not attack them. Even if that is a true story, where they did say, can we go somewhere warm? So,
warm. And Heidi and I, as parents, we said, okay, sure. And so last night I flew down with them to the beach, and then I flew back this afternoon. I had initially planned to stay through the weekend and to work remotely there, but as I was heading down there, I started to have second thoughts almost immediately because the crisis here in Texas, you need to be here on the ground, and as much as you can do by phone and Zoom.
Oh my God!
Are you saying because he was immediately called out by every media platform?
I mean, the fact that Ted Cruz can. I don't even know who he was talking to in that, where that I've heard that clip.
I think that one was from as the left wing now refers to it as the mothership. Whenever Republicans want to go have a place to speak, it's on Fox News. Yeah.
Okay. So the fact that Ted Cruz could get that drivel out of his sniveling fucking mouth without laughing, without cracking up like I'm doing, it just proves what a piece of shit he is.
But
it's like I went down. I planned to stay until the weekend until I got caught, and then I decided to hottail it back here and try to save my political career.
Yeah, right. So, that's exactly right. And listen, it's bad optics, and you're right. You got other people not from his state and not from his party, some of whom I can't even fucking stand.
Your favorite
coming in there raising money because I think they're trying to do the right thing. But again, what about every other person on that plane that was flying from Texas to Cancun? They're trying to get the fuck out, and they're not elected officials.
None of them are the senators.
Well, so what? They're trying to get water and get warm.
Well, that's okay for them, but Ted has his responsibilities.
Well, I mean, what's he supposed to do?
It's up to him whether he's going to shirk them or not. So I guess he made his choice. Hey, listen, let's just put this out there. Nobody likes Ted Cruz. Nobody in the Republican Party.
How did he get elected?
I don't know. Such a rat-faced piece of shit.
Do you think, remember, he's one of the only senators that I know that's pushing for this term limit thing. Do you think it's because he knows he's not going to get reelected? So he's like, hey, let me sabotage my own chances and put in this term limit thing?
I don't know. I didn't know he wasn't in favor of term limits. But, any stupid idea that he gloms onto, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, but you can't shoot down all ideas just because who's behind it, because that's, got its merits.
Look, when you were behind it, I didn't like it, right?
I know, but you'll come around.
don't think I'm a big fan of term limits, and if he is in favor of term limits, it's not the worst thing he's ever been in favor of. Trust me.
Right? Yeah, especially his most recent records. That's what I'm saying.
So, well, whatever. He's here. Let's just hope he's going to pay the price.
So he has the governor of Texas has declared what you declare as a governor an emergency or a disaster, whatever, and then if the president okays that, then you get federal funding, something like that. Which I think Biden did.
I don't know all the technical terms, but I know Biden did the emergency.
Yeah, he did
proclamation.
So
FEMA's in there.
Does that mean that the rest of the country shares in the expense, or only in the role of the federal response?
Shares in the expense of what?
Well, like these bills.
I don't think anybody in the rest of the country is freezing to death in their fucking bedroom, right?
Well, I mean, it's almost like
too much of a Debbie Downer, but
no. But you know what it is?
We pay FEMA. FEMA's going to be the one,
but
that's
they're
where
not.
The money is going to flow.
They're only going to pay for the federal response, like FEMA, right? They're not going to pay for any of the local expenses that were incurred prior to.
I don't know. Why? What's the?
Well,
what would you expect FEMA to pay for?
No, they
don't pay for anything. They provide. Yeah,
but that costs money. Right? Who pays for those services? Taxpayers.
Right. But I mean, they provide bottled water. They provide, blankets, housing.
Shouldn't we not be providing bottled water? Shouldn't we give everybody a hydro flask, a refillable bottle, so they don't have bottled?
There's no water in Texas.
Truck it in. Get a goddamn burner. Get the ice and melt the ice and make water.
Oh God! In 2021, people in Texas. Is it Houston or Austin? Is the fourth largest city in the country? And they're getting their water. They're going out and scooping up Home Depot buckets full of snow, so they can
do that on a large scale
over their campfire in their front room.
Yeah, do it on a large scale. That's what I never understood about droughts in California, like what we face. Go get all this fucking snow from across the country, put it on trucks, drive it over here, melt it, and give us the goddamn water.
Yeah. Well, hey, here's the thing: if you drink any water you find in Texas without boiling it, you're likely to perish.
Well, I mean, that's like that everywhere. Flint, remember that big lawsuit with the water in Flint, Michigan?
More Republican nonsense, buddy.
Lead in the water?
More Republican nonsense.
Is it, though, or
Republican governor.
Is it more really the conversation of deregulation, like what you were talking about, with these Texas bills? I mean, that's... If I'm looking at that at all angles and being honest about it, me, I'm the guy who, for less government, less regulation. And to hear some of the stories about these people getting these massive electric bills is pretty fucked up, right? I mean, I'm not even sure I understand it, because we really don't have a comparison to that in California. We have a monopoly with how we get our power, and depending on where you live, that's what you have available. There's not a choice. So, but in Texas, there's like this one company is like a wholesale seller of or supplier of power. And you can decide, okay, I'm going to buy the power at whatever the going rate is today, which is $40 a month or something. But, it could go up to $10 billion or, your weight worth of Bitcoin if shit goes south, which is exactly what happened. But isn't that like good old-fashioned price gouging, like what we saw with the pandemic and face masks and all that shit?
What little I understand about that situation in Texas is that it has something to do with you could opt to be on the wholesale pricing plan, which is real cheap when supply exceeds demand, but it becomes very expensive as soon as demand exceeds supply.
I get that.
That's what it is.
And I'm for that, but isn't there a limit still on what you can charge people when you're the only game in town?
You know what, Travis? As a people, Democrats or Republicans or whatever the hell they are. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I think if you want no regulation and you want to reap the benefits of that, which can be, substantial, I think, then fuck off if you don't like the other side of the coin.
Well, and I'm kind of okay with that. I'm just trying to talk out loud and look at all sides here. But if you're this power company that offers this plan to people and they take the wholesale $40 a month offer,
yep.
If you're that company and your customers selected that plan, what does that tell you about your customer? that they are cheap and they don't have the money to pay the more expensive regulated plan. So then when you turn around and say, hey, your bill last month was $40, this month it's $5,000, if you're the power company, how do you assume those people have that money? Which they don't.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how am I going to feel sorry for them if they vote in elected officials that allow the regulations to be so lax that there's no protection for average Joe person, then that's again still a political thing.
I get it,
and still the fault of their elected officials.
And I'm okay with that.
Far Republican.
Well, I'm okay with that. I'm just saying when you look at it practically,
when you move there, then
I know that's why this is good. These disasters
Put your
are good.
$5,000 away for that really cold winter month.
I know. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I have to look at this like, you guys better figure this out before I get there.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the whole Texas situation. I've just been seeing it like everybody else. And I think obviously, I mean, what would be the right answer to this? Now somebody needs to be forced that state now needs to be forced one way or another to harden their grid, their electrical system, so that this kind of situation doesn't happen in the future.
But let me ask you a question.
And that's not going to happen without regulation.
Well, you like regulation, you like accountability and responsibility and all the illities. But in California, we lose power all the time, far more frequently than we're hearing about in Texas.
Hey, can you remind me when the last time was that we lost power for 56 hours straight?
Oh God, it probably was this last summer, I think. And California is California's a big state, right? And so maybe it's
in a different part of California than me.
No, come on.
Never lost power here for more than 20 minutes.
Yeah, you didn't. Because you live in the rich white neighborhoods of Southern California. Yes, of course.
Well, I can accept that.
But listen, we do lose power very frequently here in California. We lose it when we have heat waves. We're all advised of these rolling brownouts. We're all told that, don't use high energy use appliances for certain hours of the day. In some areas, like a lot of, I think, commercial rate plans, they charge you a different rate. Maybe on residential plans too. I'm not sure. They charge you a different rate based on the time of day that you use your stuff. Mm-hmm. My in-laws, actually, they have, who is it? Edison, I think. They have some plan where they've signed up where Edison can automatically turn off their power if they need the power for the grid. Mm-hmm. And in exchange, it's very similar to this Texas thing where they're paying a more standardized rate for power, where you're not going to have huge fluctuations from month to month.
You get a little bit lower rate if you give them the option to kill your power at will remotely. Yes.
But that's different than these massive blackouts like we had in Northern California where people lost their air conditioners. And there's stories every year about people who die because of the heat. So I'm just saying, what's the difference between what we're seeing in Texas and what we see in California with ultimately the responsibility and the change? I mean, we don't change shit here in California.
Well, in California, the power problems in Northern California are due to PG&E and the mismanagement of that company and there's a word, and this isn't going to be the right term, but it's a corporate monopoly, I think is how they describe themselves. And, the blackouts are because they're shutting off. When high wind comes up, they shut down the power lines because their equipment is on a whole, on average, 25 years past the limit of its life. So the big fire that we're all thinking about from a couple of years ago that took out that whole city, Paradise or whatever the hell it was, that was caused by a transformer blowing up, by a tower, rather, in a windstorm, in high winds that fell down and caught fire because it was 25 years past its life limit. So that means it was like 75 or 100 years old, the tower. So,
but a lot of those things
that is criminal, and I think they're going to pay for it. I think that there was a
huge settlement.
Filed bankruptcy to protect themselves against all the lawsuits that are coming in from that.
Yeah, but I think even through that bankruptcy, you're right. I think there was some type of settlement amount that was put aside for that. But that's when you talk about.
Listen, you're a utility monopoly in California, right? You should be forced to maintain the infrastructure of your electrical system to an acceptable standard. And I think I think if your towers are 25 years past the limit of their life limit span,
I know,
then you're being negligent.
And I agree with that. And the reason
right?
why they're negligent and they're not putting the money into repairing their equipment is because it costs too much. And this is another kind of democratic.
Wait. Before, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but when you say it costs too much, my impression of this fucking monopoly and the one in Southern California, Sempra Energy, is that they make billions in profit every year. And then
say it like Trump, billions and billions.
Yeah. I think, well, that's Carl Sagan. But, so I think anytime I hear how it's too expensive, I just don't agree. I'm not saying
it's yes, that's why they're not doing it. I'm not saying here's what's happening is that all these major businesses, from airlines to utilities, make decisions on where they're going to spend their money, and their argument is it's too expensive. And I think a lot of that has to do with what it costs for these employees, for these pension funds. A lot of these are union employees, and the argument from the left on Texas already is everybody has a right to power, and we're going to make it government controlled. Yeah, well, when you do that, you're going to bankrupt it by paying, triple the minimum wage and forever pensions and free everything, because that's what they want to do. Come on.
Well, I can only tell you that the phrase, we would do that, but it's too expensive, is only okay if you're making dog collars or, cosmetics or, I don't know.
Can we outsource the repair of the towers? Can we have the sweatshop kids in China build these towers for us?
Jesus Christ. When you are a public utility, that just is not acceptable. So,
but it has been accepted. So how come it's gone so long in California?
The governor, so
you think that's going to go through?
I don't know, man. There's in my neighborhood is starting to.
How about your dude that's got his
littered with? My neighbor's starting to be littered with recall Newsom signs.
What was the one guy who had he was an anti-Trump guy, and he had what was his banner that he had up right after the election?
Oh yeah, Trump lost LOL.
Yeah. Where is he on the recall?
I haven't seen. I do walk by his house frequently, so and I was wondering about this, because all during the election and then up through the 20th, he had these Trump lost LOL, Black Lives Matter, and all. He's not black, by the way. He's
not
like
in your neighborhood.
He's like Eastern European or something. So, because I talked to him, I thought he was Hispanic, but he's not. So, super nice guy, big patriot. On the day on January 20th, he lined his yard in American flag. So small American flags on poles that went all the way around the perimeter of his property. But then once all that was over and we were on the other side of January 20th and the sort of, the what do you call it? The transition of power was done. He took it all down. So he's not just an inconsiderate, bastard of a neighbor that's trying to drive his neighbors insane. He took his stuff down. There are still actually a couple houses around here that have their Trump 2020 flags up.
Well, they'll just take a can of spray paint and make it 24, right? Now that he's eligible to do that.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how many QAnon nitwits we have in the neighborhood. So.
You should go door to door and canvass as a,
Travis lived here 23 something years, right? I haven't even really met my next door neighbors. You think I'm going door to door here?
Nobody wants to see anybody.
That's right. I don't tell anybody what I do or, The one time when I had my fume company, we fumigated a house in this neighborhood. They killed the dog by accident of the neighbor.
So now your neighbors, you're marked.
They don't know it's me. It's up.
Yeah, as far as you know.
There's a street that T-bones into the front of my house, and if you go up around the corner, then when you make that bend, that's where my nitwit guys managed to kill this guy.
Well,
kill this dog on somebody's property.
Speaking of T-bone, do you think that this recall thing?
This can't be good.
No, I'm just saying with the governor, it seems to me there was traction. It seems to me mostly COVID related, and then it was only exacerbated and it gained traction because of his. He's yet another example of these. the hypocrisy with the left-leaning leaders who then say one thing and do another when he got caught in the restaurant. But are those the big items, you think? Is there anything else that he's got on his record that's tarnished?
Well, number one, I'd say he's a long way from being recalled. Although I'm not going to say it's impossible because, it
happened before.
You and I both lived here when they recalled Gray Davis, right?
And we had Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger turned out to be some kind of undercover agent for the Democrats. Couldn't you figure that one out?
I thought that was awesome.
Shriver.
That was when he was in Sacramento, you could still say things. Remember when he was like, the leaders are girly men. You could still say shit like that. Now he would get canceled because they're like, well, you can be a girl and a man. You can be both, whatever you feel.
Can you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger as the good old days? Is that really?
I think so.
Or Pete Wilson.
Driving his Hummer and flying his private jet every day. That was what I wanted to see. You need to see strength in leadership.
Nobody talks about, He what?
You need to see strength in leadership. You know why they say Carter never survived? Because he wore those fucking cardigans. He looked frail like Mr. Rogers, and he carried his own luggage up the plane.
Yeah.
You're like, no,
you're not
carrying your own goddamn bag.
There's a special on CNN that they're running. It's called, it's got a picture of Carter. He's looking up, and there's a flag billowing behind his head. This is a drawing. And he looks pretty strong. He's looking up to the clouds like he's, and it says, Jimmy Carter, rock and roll president. CNN lives in the past. So, yeah.
Do you think that it's the responsibility of the government to take over things like power and everything? I mean, where do we draw the line? And I get it, with things like infrastructure and, what was it under FDR with the highway programs and everything else, but we can't take over everything. Not literally, and we can't afford it.
I'm not an expert on power companies and stuff. I mean, as much interaction I've had over the last 15, 16 years with the gas company in Southern California. When you want to talk about monopolistic bureaucracies that don't give a shit, look you right in the face, tell you one thing and just lie their asses off. As much as I thought it was different, right? I mean, when we first started dealing with them, I just figured those companies had catchy names like SoCal Gas or something, but they were really government-run, public utilities.
Exactly, right.
And they're not. None of them are. And so evidently there must be some common train of thought that that's a better way to run that system. And I'm not saying get rid of it all, make it all government-run, but whether it's whether it's ERCOT in Texas, I think they're going to be in trouble. So, I mean, they're not going to get through this unscathed. Whether it's PG&G in Northern California or sooner or later, Sempra Energy or SoCal Gas blew up a whole fucking neighborhood that was PG&E that blew up a neighborhood in Northern Cal, but then it was SoCal Gas that had this big natural gas storage issue out in, what was that? Something ranch.
Yeah, somewhere. I think it's in Southern California.
Yeah, it's a big cavern underground where they were storing natural gas, and it was leaking out into the neighborhood.
But every opportunity I get to ask you this question, I do. Don't you think the real problem is not the infrastructure or the decisions around the infrastructure, in this case specifically supplying the power? Isn't the real problem the fact that we have too many goddamn people drawing on it?
Ay.
Come on.
And you're going to move there?
No, I'm not just saying Texas. I'm saying in the world. Is the problem that we have gas-guzzling vehicles and we're polluting the air, or is it that we just have too many of those gas-guzzling vehicles?
You can't be on both sides of every issue, buddy.
What do you mean?
Right? You can't be conservative and right wing and all this, and then say, well, we have too many cars, and most of them are being driven by Democrats.
Yes. Now Democrats ride bicycles. I try to run them over every chance I get.
Oh my God. And,
no, we just have too many people. That's the problem.
We fly in airplanes,
and we should.
Yeah.
I actually have another sound for you. Tell me.
No, let's see.
If you know what this is.
No idea.
Think about it. guesses?
No,
You mentioned airplanes. We fly on airplanes.
I don't know. Is it the airplane that took out of Denver?
Yes, that's
Colorado,
the sound of that
the engine caught on
fucking
fire?
engine on fire, rattling and hanging on that
Really?
wing by a thread.
I'm so happy to see that 7 days before I get on an airplane.
I know.
For
That's
the
why
first
I
time
was
in 8
like, do I
months.
want to bring it up to you?
I don't worry about shit like that. I mean,
I don't want to
anyway-
tell the audience where you're going, but all I'm going to say is that plane was going to Hawaii.
I don't think that's a big. I don't think that's a big stretch for anybody that knows me. Here's the thing, right? No matter what you say or how many of those pictures you show me, how many airline toilets fall out of the sky or frozen blocks of shit out of their toilets or whatever hits people on the head. Flying is still a zillion times safer than the drive to the airport will be for me, right?
I know.
It's a zillion times more dangerous to drive from I think we're going to take off from La Palma. So, and this is not because of the driver, because someone's going to be taking us very kindly at early in the morning. But that ride will be far more dangerous than any airplane trip.
But you know what? I mean, I'm the one that talks about all the airplane crash videos, cockpit voice recorders.
Well, you must have been having a good time.
Oh my God.
That about 1,000 times, right?
Yeah, but you know what? What really bugs me is because there was a period of time where I guess I would let my fear, get in the way and I wouldn't go places. But as I got older and had to do shit, it just became unavoidable. I mean, you got to get on a plane. But through all this COVID stuff, nobody's traveling. The airlines were almost bankrupt, and they're all saying, well, we've grounded all these planes. And as a result, a lot of them are phasing out some of the older planes earlier than expected. When they all have, all the major carriers have a system, right? I mean, whether it's the 747s, the A380s, the airplanes themselves have a lifespan.
A systematic, preventive maintenance program is what.
Well, all
it's
that,
called.
but they have the airplanes have a lifespan and a maintenance schedule, and they're usually sold, 3 to 5 times in their lifetime, and they ultimately make their way down to the third world countries that will crash them at some point when they're about 50 years old. But the U.S.
Air Lithuania
and Malaysia and everywhere else. I mean,
well, wasn't this a 777?
it was a 777.
Isn't that a fairly new plane?
Well, I don't know when this particular plane was built, but I think the first 777s are already 20, 25 years old.
I thought they were the newer ones.
They're still making
them. It's a tough year for Boeing. That's what I'm going to tell you.
It's been a tough couple of years, and that's the thing is
they're liable to go under.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think you can, are they too big to fail? What do you do there?
I don't know.
What do you do with all those Boeing planes? Basically, it's Boeing and Airbus.
Companies, right?
I know, but these things have, call it a 30-year service span on average, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can look this up, by the way. You can look up all the major carriers, and they'll tell you the average age of their fleet, and I think you can even figure out, the quantity of each plane that they have, and you can see how much life these planes have left in them. But they're going to go somewhere. So if you lose a company like Boeing, who's going to service the parts? Who's going to take over for the maintenance and everything else for the fleet that's already in the sky?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how business is for Boeing. In view of the what is it, the 737 MAX situation, and there's been no ramifications from this. Nobody got hurt, so there's no giant flood of lawsuits. A couple of people are their insurance company's gonna pay for these. Some of these parts went right through the fucking roof of some of these houses and stuff. So that's all small potatoes, man. That's not. It'll be nothing. Even if one person gets killed in an airplane crash, it's going to be more than they sustain that. But it's bad press.
But there was already. So we already established COVID is a year old, more or less, in our lives. There was another plane, I think it's been within COVID, that was on its way to Hawaii. I don't know if it was United. I don't think it was a 777, but it lost an engine on its way to Hawaii. I think it was from San Jose. This is a couple of months ago now, and had to turn around. And now you have this one. I'm just saying, you think with airlines pulling their fleet and purging their fleet because they just don't have the demand, and they've been dealing with this for the last year, that they would take the oldest planes or the planes that are not as reliable or prone to problems. This particular one, it was because of the engines. You know, they don't all have the same engines. I think these were Pratt and Whitney engines, but still, it's fucking scary.
Well, go back 15 years, ballpark, give or take a few years, and there was a flight to Hawaii where the whole cabin, the whole roof of the main cabin
that was more than 15 years.
Tore off and flew off into
that was Aloha Airlines. Remember Aloha?
Yeah. Are you sure it was Aloha?
It was Aloha, and that was an inter-island flight. And it was an older 737. So this, I think, happened it was like late 80s when that happened. And that plane was already 20-something years old, and it was going from one island to the other. And you're right, the whole roof came off, and it sucked out a flight attendant.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
listen
airline stuff doesn't scare me. So
here's normal, everything's doing good. The flight takes off.
United 328 Heavy, soundside departure. Have a good day. Clear departure, United 328 Heavy, Mahalo. Number departure, United 328 Heavy is with you out of 6 for flight level 230.
United 328 Heavy, Devon departure, radar contact, climb and maintain Papa 230. Moderate turbulence from 14 to Papa 220.
Okay, understand. Thanks to the Pi Rep. Clear to climb flight level 230, United 328 Heavy.
what was this?
United 328 Heavy, clear direct Zimmer.
All right, direct to Zimmer, United 328 Heavy.
Okay, so that's the conversation when they take off. I'm not sure if it took off from Denver. I think it did, or they're passing over the control tower of that area. But that's regular chatter, right? And I told you I geek out on this stuff, and I try to listen to the conversations. But that's normal conversation when you're either taking off or you're traveling through airspace. And really what they say is that the air traffic controllers are the ones flying the plane. Yes, the pilots are in the cockpit, but they're telling you, they're giving you your vectors, they're telling you what altitude, watch out for other traffic, all that. And then they'll tell you when you get, this area, change from this frequency to that frequency, you're not going to talk to us anymore, you're going to talk to this, whatever.
Right.
And so that was the banter as they're climbing out. I think they were at 23,000 feet. And then, right after that.
Denver departure, did 328 Heavy, we experienced an engine failure. Need a turn.
Yeah, need a turn.
Hang on.
Mayday, United 28, United 328 Heavy, Mayday aircraft.
328 Heavy, say again, please, read all that again.
So you hear the alarm in the background, right?
Yeah.
And then they're trying to figure it out. He calls out Mayday, and the fucking air traffic controller's like, "Can you repeat that, sir?" I mean, your whole job is to listen for a Mayday.
Well, he's scrolling through TikTok. So.
I don't know what he's doing. It's like, Jesus. But
exactly what it sounds like. What? Could you say that again? Can you repeat that? Your wing fell off? What was it again?
Yeah. I mean, these pilots, that's the thing. You hear the stories. Usually you hear the story, the plane landed safely without incident. You read the statement from the airline that everybody was safe and, we landed as normal. And anytime something like that happens, I mean, kudos to the pilots. That's got to be fucking, even though you're trained for it, I can't even imagine going through something like that.
Looking out the window, being the passenger that looked out the window and took the cell phone video of the engine on fire.
Exactly.
I mean,
so these guys are doing their best. I won't play any more of that, but the audio continues where they're just talking with the tower. And at that point, the tower, his only job is to focus on that airplane, clear all the other traffic, clear the runways, and then communicate with the pilots, ask them for help. They're going through checklists. They're trying to figure out, okay, is there more to this fire? Can we just isolate that? Can we shut off the engine? Can we still, stay airborne, all of that? And that's all he's worried about is just staying airborne. And then he's got to figure out how to get back to the airport without hitting any other traffic. I'm not sure if he dumped fuel or not, but he basically is saying, hey, I clear the way. Let me figure this out, and then we'll come back and land.
So if they dump fuel out of that plane at that point, they just spray it out into the air, and so it just spreads out and falls down on everybody's house or whatever.
Yeah, well, they said go back over Texas and shoot it over them because maybe they'll start a fire and warm everybody up. Yeah.
Fire. Wait. Oh my God.
Well, here on the West Coast, if that happens, they send you out over the ocean. But in Middle Earth, you don't have that option.
That's right.
But you hear them calling out, right? Like United, whatever, Heavy. That means they got all those people and fuel on the plane. So you calculate.
We're not coming back empty. We're not empty.
You can't. Yeah, because they have a maximum landing weight. So if you had a full tank to go to Hawaii, you can't just land with all that.
Oh,
You're going to fall apart.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you'll come in too hot, and you'll break apart. You can't get the glide slope and your weight. You won't stop. All that shit.
So
If
they don't want, if
you drop fuel over innocent people, is that a crime? Is the airline now going to be sued?
Is the pilot Republican or Democrat?
They're going to ask him, I think, and they're going to say, let me see your social media. Do you follow Trump? And if we're going to boot you out.
Hey, so are you following the student loan debt situation? Elizabeth Warren came out and said something like she thinks that everybody that has student loan debt should get, $50,000 of it forgiven right off the bat, something like that?
Yeah, I'm following the story, and it's making me mental because, here we go, more free shit that, everyone's going to get free money, free college.
That is the left wing of the policy of the party.
I don't even know if her stance is 50,000. I think at this point they're now negotiating with themselves because I want to say she was one of the people who was originally up around 100, 150,000, maybe even an infinite number. And I think
like all student loan debt.
Yeah, all student loan debt. And even during the campaign, this was one of the areas that I think Biden had to be very careful and tread lightly on which side he came down on before he won, right? When he was still kind of competing against Trump because he didn't want to say the wrong thing, not because he was senile, but because he didn't want to say the wrong number. But I think he's only ever supported 10,000. So
really?
He did this.
I haven't even heard that. I thought I heard him say something over the weekend that when asked about this by reporters that he's like, hey, well, we're not going to be doing that.
Right.
Like
yeah. He did a town hall, and then I think that came up, and he said, I can't see us doing that. Maybe I could see 10,000 or something. And then, all the progressives in the left are saying, well, why give it a number? And I think Biden was even saying, well, we got to look at the applicants, look at what school they went to, look at their demographics, and then we'll make a decision. And the extreme on the left is saying, well, why even carve out certain categories? Just if you're going to do it, just do it.
Is this because they think that's going to help stimulate the economy? Is that the rationale they're using for this, or is this just an overarching far left Democrat kind of?
Well,
trope, right?
you know what I think. It's the latter, but I mean, I think it's part of their wish list, right? It's part of the wish list of we think that groups of people have been treated unfairly because they didn't have access to education, and when they did, it cost an arm and a leg, so they were forced to take out these expensive loans. And now that they're in the workforce, they're not making at least minimum wage, and they can't afford to pay the loans back. I think it's all coupled together, but. It's another. I'll use your word. It's another dangerous idea to. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're you and I are both.
It seems like how do you? I mean, what does that mean, Travis? Does that mean that the government then goes to these lenders that lend people money for their studies to? So let's say that. Let's say there's 1 million people that have $50,000 at least worth of student loan debt. I know people have more.
What's that?
Than that.
What's that math? Is that 50 gazillion? Well, I don't even know what the math comes out to.
No, I don't know. 1 million people, I don't know. So whatever. So a gazillion. But I mean, does that mean? So is the thinking that the government is just going to pay the lenders off so they don't lose their shirts and go out of business?
Well, I don't know.
Or do we just tell the lenders to fuck off and hey, guess what? We're gonna take it upon ourselves to make you lose all that student loan debt that you've got. I don't understand how.
Well, that's the question. I think that the majority, if not all of these loans, are backed by the government. And not every loan since the beginning of time, but I think most all new loans are backed by the government. So they're basically saying, hey, we are your creditor and we are willing to forgive the debt, which then, of course, becomes a taxpayer problem. But I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I only hear, what the ideas are. I don't really know if there's been a legitimate plan penciled out. But if your loans are forgiven, I mean, number one, right, what does that say to the lenders? You and I are both business people. If someone owed us money, we would do everything we could to get the money collected. We're not just going to forgive it because we're a nice bank.
Typically.
Right. And they agreed to it, right? So these kids, I mean, what did you think? You know what the profession is, you know what you're going to get paid. Why agree to take this loan out? But then, so what are we teaching? How does that go into financial literacy? But then if we actually forgive the debt, and I don't know this piece, is there a tail there? Does it track to your credit report? I mean, if you have mortgage forgiveness, if you have a bankruptcy, if you have a short sale, that ultimately gets reported.
What about all the people that paid their student loan debt?
Exactly. What does that say to them?
I think we're not maybe on opposite sides of this issue, to be honest with you, because I never paid attention to what Elizabeth Warren was saying about it before. And I don't know what her platform, I know she had some kind of plan. So the details are really light for me. So I don't know exactly why. So
I have your girlfriend here, Jen Psaki. I think she's talking about.
Is she gonna say circle back?
No, she's gonna say circle jerk.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's my.
He said previously that relief above $10,000 should be targeted based on the borrower's income, based on the kind of debt in question, public schools versus private schools, graduate schools versus undergraduate. Obviously, there's a lot of considerations at play. What the president has told Senators Schumer and Warren is that once his team is in place at the Justice Department, and they are not, of course, they're not confirmed at this point, he will ask them to conduct a legal review of his authority to act by executive action in conjunction with a policy review from his Domestic Policy Council on how executive action debt relief, if any, should be targeted. And once that's concluded, he'll decide the path forward.
So I don't even know what's the answer.
I didn't follow any of that.
You want me to play the circle back one again? Is that more coherent?
Yeah, she talks fast.
I think she's a reader. I think she's reading her answers.
Oh, she's got all that stuff in her book, right?
Yeah.
Did you see she's got the thing in front of her, and then she's got the little tabs.
And she goes to the tab. Okay, they're going to ask
so you
me
ask
this
the question,
question.
and then she thumbs down with her finger through the tabs until she says student debt relief, and then she.
And then there's the quote: "Read this highlighted part. Only stop here."
Yeah, but that's how you're supposed to do that job. That's the way that job is supposed to work.
Is that why people got so angry at Sarah Sanders? Because she would speak freely, and maybe she was conveying Trump's thoughts. Maybe those were her own ideas, but because she was so candid that people were like, fuck, do you really believe that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's taking a chance on being kind of flip about this. I don't think that Trump had any thought out ideas on any of these subjects. So I don't think
you think he tried to think and nothing happened.
Yes, I do. Much like your favorite quote,
Curly.
I think that, for her, it was just all right-wing dogma, and she didn't need any reference materials. I never heard her answer a question to begin with. In the short time that she was, it seemed like forever when it was happening, but then, she stopped doing press briefings, right? And then the only information out of the administration was Trump walking out to the helicopter. Remember those
Yep.
days? They boarded up the press briefing room, never to be used again during the Trump administration. And the only time you could ever, because she couldn't answer it correctly, right? She couldn't do it. Sean Spicer couldn't do it because he just told him to shut the fuck up.
Were those the only two? I don't remember.
Well, there was the lawyer, Scaramucci.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. He was there for 4 days. There were a couple of press secretaries that we never saw that were in while he was doing the walk to the helicopter bit. We never saw any press or heard from him. They were there theoretically coordinating the messages, but no.
So where are you on free college? Never mind canceling student loans, but are you in the supporting the free college camp?
Not free, just not free, but it can't be as expensive as it is. I think I didn't go to college. I don't have any kids that are going to college, so I'm not a big stakeholder in this, other than I believe higher education is the grease that enables upward mobility from, say, one generation to the next. So I think my personal idea on this now is that we should make higher education in whatever form that is, whether it's in person, whether it's Zoom. When we found out that where you could only, in a situation, even in a large auditorium where you can only reach 120 people at one time, you can run a Zoom class and talk to 300, 400 people. So maybe you don't have to charge so much, right? I mean, you don't have to.
Why? I mean, why is it so fucking expensive?
Well, because universities have gotten into this thing where they're more proud of how many people they turn away than how many people they can accept. And so they turn away a vastly larger number of people than they accept. And that's just stupid.
So is that the same thing as saying that their expenses, outpace their income because they don't have enough paying students?
Not an expert on the, I think it's a complicated formula for the way institutions of higher learning operate. There's endowments and things that are involved that change the playing ground, between places. Not an expert on it. What I have heard from people that I have heard talk about what should happen with higher education is that you need to eliminate all that nonsense. You need to burn out this pride that higher education has and how many people they turn away, how many people don't get accepted, to make it so exclusive. Because when you make something exclusive, you always jack the price up on it. And obviously, if you're only going to have X amount of students and you have to charge each one of them $100,000 a year or whatever the going rate is now, I think it's somewhere up there.
It's a crazy number.
Right. So,
it's more money than the families
more students
are earning.
More students paying a lower rate, not less students paying more. So and here's the thing, what makes this a net gain for society, right? Is that we have more. Do we have the maximum amount of people getting the maximum amount of higher education? That's what's good for the country. That's what's good for the job market in the future, right? That's what will be good for business in America.
So how do we balance and I agree with that, but how do we balance the, that against the kids who know they don't want to go to college, right? So if there's basically a government subsidized education program in some way, whether it's totally free or whatever, but ultimately makes going to college more affordable, how do you balance that for the kids who aren't going to go to college or they just know they don't want to? So what do you give them so that they have opportunities for advancement too?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that I have an answer to that. I think that the issue of how do you make higher education affordable for more people is the real question, not what do you do for the people that doesn't include. I'm not sure.
What would you feel like?
I think we're talking about, we're talking about trade schools and things like that. I think.
Well, kind of, yeah. But how would you feel if when you were of college age, this was a thing? It was available where you knew, okay, college eligible kids, you have the opportunity to go to a 4-year school for free, but you knew you weren't going to go to a school, and you just wanted to go straight into the workforce. Would you feel slighted that the value of that 4-year education wasn't offered to you in some other way?
I don't think it should be free. So I'm not sure if that eliminates that situation that you're describing there or not. I think the cost for higher education should be reasonable enough so that the vast majority of people that want it can afford it, can do it, can get it, right? And so, Travis, you probably get there in a combination of ways, right? You lower the tuitions and you raise the ability of people to pay that tuition. So how do you do that? Other things that, we've talked about in the past, is that minimum wage? Is that, what is it?
It's not that, I can promise you that.
It's a commitment. Is it a commitment by corporate America to subsidize some of this themselves because they're the ones that ultimately will benefit from it? I think that there's a lot of ways but for people, if you do not want a higher education because you just don't want it, then I think like that's always kind of been the thing. If you don't want it, you're not willing to do the work that would be entitled to do it. I don't think you deserve something else in place of it necessarily.
Well, it's an interesting argument, and I don't know that that's the case being made for the opponents of an idea like that, but you do have to think it through that, if you have basically a taxpayer funded initiative, it isn't reaching all of the citizens if you do it that way, I think. But I don't know. I mean, you're right. It's expensive as hell. It's just not sustainable. And, I have young kids, and, they say it's never too early to start talking about planning for college. And I had kids, I think, a little bit later than a lot of people. I mean, I was in my late 30s by the time we had our first one, but I've told them, and I've told our financial people, that it's not in my financial plan to pay for my kids' school. And I'm being honest. I mean, like I said, I'm a little older. My goal is me first. I got a plan for retirement. My wife's younger than me, so she's gonna outlive me. I got a plan for her.
Start putting that in their birthday cards.
Happy birthday! I owe you.
Happy 6th birthday. Start saving your money.
Exactly, and that's the other thing. What if they're not college kids? What if they don't want to go to school?
Well,
so
then you use that money that you put away for them or didn't put away for something else. I mean, probably whatever.
Hey, I'm so glad you chose not to go to college, because we didn't save for you all these years, so it's not an issue.
It's funny because there was I hated school, and when I got out of high school, I had zero intention of going to college, and I just wanted a job where I could make enough money to pay my rent and buy my beer, among other things, and party on the weekends.
What were those other things?
We're not going to go to it here. It's still federally illegal. So, and then after about, how long was it? About 3 years of working full time, and realizing that, I was probably on a fast track to homelessness. Pretty soon, I had started to say, okay, you know what? I could go to school all day, every day, 10 hours a day, every day of the week, and it would be better than working 40 hours a week. And so the only way I was going to do that was to move back home. And that was an ugly situation. My parents' house was like 800 square feet, not a big house, right? It's a classic California cottage in a shithole in Inglewood. And so, I mean, the idea of that, but I couldn't think any other way. And then try to, work a part-time job and, try to go to junior college or something. So, but then I got a different job. I got into the fabulous world of pest control, and I never had to go to school again.
You achieve your millionaire status and never look back.
Well, I've had a lot of lucky breaks in my time. And so for me, it's a story that has a relatively happy ending, but I don't know, man. I don't think that my career path is going to be available to people en masse, going forward. And I think that the jobs that are really going to pay any kind of decent money are jobs that are going to require training, but it's not even necessarily higher education. So I think probably the answer to some of these questions, Travis, is when we talk about higher education, we probably need to talk about all forms of career training, whether they're higher education for a great deal of people that would be a huge benefit, and they'd be adapt at it. And then other people that we need to support the cost of their training to go into industries that are going to pay decent money, whether that's tech or IT or.
You mean industries that actually pay more than the minimum wage?
Yeah, industries that actually pay more than the minimum wage. And I mean, ideally, it would be great if we could find a way for adults to not work minimum wage jobs, right? But one of the big problems is that there's a lot of people that are trying that. I don't know whose fault is it. I don't know. That's another show, I think. But they find themselves in industries that typically, historically, have not paid enough for people to support their families, but they can't get any other work because they have no access to the advanced training it would take to enter into other industries like coding or IT or whatever the hell it is. There's got to be other things. I'm not an expert on that, but does that make sense at all?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot in there that I agree with, but I just always go back to personal responsibility. And I just I would never take out a loan that I didn't have an intention of paying back or that I thought I reasonably had a chance to pay back. I mean, there's a reason why I buy Fords and not Ferraris, because I can't afford a Ferrari.
You're American. No.
Yeah, didn't Ford win on Ford versus Ferrari?
You hate the Italians. No.
But you know what I mean? Like, why I don't, where's the personal responsibility for those who signed on the dotted line that says, okay, I'll pay this back. And those rates are like really low too.
Yeah. And I'm just, I guess, because I know people in my own personal orbit that have had and recently paid off student loans. And so it's now,
yeah, they did it.
They're not, they didn't get student loans so they could be, I don't know how do you build up a really big student loan? What kind of education do you have to have ginormous student loans?
It's probably achieve? More than 4 years. It's probably a master's or a doctorate or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know anybody like that, that isn't providing me service. I mean, I know lawyers, I know doctors, I know stuff like that, but
yeah, you pay them a fortune.
Yeah. And then they get paid for what they do. So, how many of them have student loans? I don't know. I assume that the problem has worsened in the last 10, 20 years or something, as far as how much loan debt you got to take out to go to the school that gets you some kind of job. But I think this has more to do with schools promoting and maintaining their exclusivity than it does, the ability to provide the education. Right?
And I don't know why, if you had this exclusive club that's like, hey, we only let in, I don't know what the number is, but pick a club, 1,000 students a year. Oh, and it's going to cost you $50,000 and your right thumb to come in. I'd be like, well, fuck off. I don't want to get in.
Yeah, but you know what? If you were a status-seeking piece of shit hipster and you were shopping for country clubs,
I don't drink out of mason jars. I'm not a hipster.
Huh? You don't drink out of mason jars. I don't know if that's the only criteria for being a hipster, but if you're trying to join a country club, and one country club is $200 a quarter, and the other one is $3,000 a month with a $10,000 initial buy-in to be part of the club.
Hey, those numbers are pretty close. You've been shopping for one?
Yeah, well, I'm already a member at 6 or 7. So,
you just don't pay your dues.
Yeah, so I mean, then maybe the point is that, like so many things, you won't, the $200 a quarter club won't cut it for even though the smarter hipster might pay, buy the cheaper one, and let's assume things are relatively equal. There's a massage parlor and there's or massage room or whatever there is.
I know what's on your mind.
And a polo field and a golf course or whatever at both places. The $200 one's not going to provide them the status, So I think that sometimes that's just, and I think that they have talked themselves into this in the halls of, and we're talking about Ivy League, and I know it's a lot cheaper at, say, university, but the Cal State University system still, they have significant limits on how many people can get in, right? And they think it's
everything has limits.
I get limits, but artificially low limits that mean you have to. I mean, we have to make that a failing, not a victory. I mean, to have any kind of school that provides higher education, take pride in the fact that many more people don't qualify than qualify. That doesn't mean you have to lower the standards. It's because it's not all just about your grade points and stuff, right? I mean, you still have to have the money to get in, right? So I think that that's just something we have to make a sea change in as a society, right? And I think that this recent spate of distance learning and stuff, there are things to learn from it, right? And I don't think that anybody wants to keep Zoom school in place for little kids, but it might very much be the way to go for higher education, right? Maybe.
Yeah, well, and that would be a reason why. That would be a reason towards not being able to justify those goddamn fees. If I'm just going to sit here and do an online course, why would I pay the same fee that I would $50,000 a year for the same education?
Well, what I'm hearing is that there's a significant amount of people that are doing better by doing higher education via Zoom, right?
Well, they've had these online schools, University of Phoenix, I think New Hampshire is another one, that their whole model is online remote learning for the busy professional or the adults that just don't have the time to enroll in a 4-year school. I think that's all great.
They still carry a stigma, though, that we as a society would have to actively work to change or eliminate or something, so that, because I think that for a lot of people, it's like, hey, I can't do correspondence And I don't think they've been that good either.
You know what else I think is part of this overall equation? Because it really isn't just one solution. It's not canceling student loans. It's not free college. It's not any one of those things. I think you gotta look at the whole big picture. But another thing that I think will change is the requirement or the desire of businesses to recruit people that only have a 4-year degree. I think you need to have the skills, and certainly for certain professions, I mean, you want the guy doing your brain surgery to know which end of your body your brain is in and be able to find it. But there's a lot of...
Do you?
Well, I mean, depends on what surgery we're doing. But I don't know. I think for the average, I don't know. I mean, in your day, would you say that, the average employer, whether it was, a sales job or, I don't know, any other office job, weren't they looking for college graduates?
Well, I mean...
Why is it a thing,
so.
Right? It's a thing because that's what employers wanted.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, do you need a college education to be in sales? I mean, I think it was, man, I just heard somebody that's pretty successful just talk about, hey, along with your higher education, get a job in sales and develop those skills, right? Because most likely you'll always be able to make a living.
That's exactly, yeah.
You can do that.
And I think
right?
it's learning the skill. I think, and that's another reason why I'm opposed to the minimum wage, because I think you can learn a skill that ultimately you can take to, say, a sales job and make more money, certainly far greater than a minimum wage. And I think it's about learning the skill. And there's a lot of jobs, I think, that for people that we probably know, and you look at the companies and the jobs that don't require a college degree.
Yeah.
So they're, I know
have college degrees and don't appear to use them.
Well, that's the other thing, right? I mean, how many people have you talked to? Maybe you find out later in life, oh, you know them, they're successful. You attribute that to their, to their choices and their education. Now, what'd you major in? Oh, Russian literature. What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
That's Tucker Carlson, by the way.
Agriculture.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson. Oh my God.
So what else? We can't, airplanes falling out of the sky, but we can land on Mars. So what can I say about our technology?
What do you think? Is that helicopter flying on the surface of Mars? You know a lot about aviation.
What do you mean? The one that lowered the rover?
Well, no. So with the rover, then the rover should have launched a small helicopter.
I'm not that far in the story yet. So the rover is on the ground and it launched a helicopter?
I don't know if it did or didn't. It brought one down with it that was going to be launched from the rover. So there was the thing, whatever they dropped out of the spacecraft that took the whole thing out there, that had the rover, and so kind of came down and then has like retro rockets or something to slow it down after it goes through the atmosphere, right? And then it dangles from the bottom of it from cords, and then it drops at the appropriate height. But parachutes aren't very effective because there's no air there.
It's fascinating, right? I mean, how do these people know? I mean, I really am into this shit. My kids wanted to watch it, so we're gonna show them some stuff later. And in the spirit of, outer space, I am wearing my Omega Speedmaster moon watch here today.
Oh, okay.
So
wow. Nice watch.
Yep. That was
my,
one percenter, baby.
Huh?
1%er, baby.
Is that the watch that has a moon rock in it that it's calibrated on the pulses?
Yeah, it has actual Bitcoin gold in it.
Bitcoin gold. Hey, is there anything we can talk about in this episode that has to do with the stock market? So we can.
Are you interested? Well, I mean, I don't know what the stock market is doing today. It's going to be old news as soon as this episode publishes. But I mean, I'm thinking about. You can't ever time it right. I mean, all the people are saying we're in for a correction. 10, 20, 40%. Are you Googling Siri here?
No, Siri heard. So they're not listening, right? And I did not say Siri, but somehow she thought I asked her the question. So it was. Hey,
you're the one who's in favor of big government and surveillance, but your own phone is out to get you.
I know, man. Well, there's only, just looking around this room, there's only 7 or 8 different ways the government could be monitoring me visually and audibly. So. Well,
I'll do my stock market research and give you a report on the next episode.
Yeah, nothing exciting like the whole GameStop or Stop or whatever the hell it was.
Well, there's going to be more to that. I mean, there's certainly more to that story, but I think it's just like everything. I mean, there's this great reset of, maybe it's the cleansing, right? Maybe it's the cleansing of Trump. Maybe it's, everybody wants to just, all the things that you just wanted to focus on. I'm talking about the average citizen that you were maybe interested in, but you just couldn't take your eye off the ball. That was Trump.
Right.
And so now you can get back to basics. And the stock market is great. I'm a capitalist, so I'm in the stock market. I was just talking to my wife today about more money in the stock market.
Yeah.
So
I guess my wife has some Disney stock, so she's been happy recently.
Yeah, but they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, they're doing okay. She doesn't have a lot, so.
We have to be careful. If we do our stock picks and then, people follow our advice and they lose money, we have to sign a waiver or something.
That's kind of a theme today.
It is. Well, we had enough for today, my friend.
I think so. Yeah.
All right, everybody.
All right.
We'll catch you on the next one.
See you later.